The stars had never looked so wrong. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood at the observation deck of the International Space Station, her coffee floating forgotten beside her. She had seen meteor showers, solar flares, and the northern lights dancing over Earth's curve, but she had never seen the sky itself turn dark. Thousands of shapes blocked the starlight. They emerged from nothing, appearing in the space beyond Jupiter like ink spreading through water. At first, the sensors counted hundreds, then thousands. The number kept climbing until the computers simply displayed a symbol for infinity. 12,000 warships, the largest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled for a single conquest on Earth. Every telescope turned toward the approaching nightmare. Every satellite adjusted its cameras. Every radio telescope picked up the same transmission, repeating in 100 different languages, translated by technology humans could not understand. We are the Valkyrie Dominion. We have claimed this system. Resistance is not advised. Admiral Voroth stood on the command bridge of the Eternal Subjugation, the flagship of the Dominion fleet. He was tall for his species, with gray skin that looked like cracked stone and for eyes that glowed with a dim yellow light. His people had conquered 4,000 worlds across 3 galaxies. They had crushed civilizations that built cities in the hearts of stars. They had defeated enemies who could move planets with their thoughts. This little blue world would not even qualify as a challenge. It would barely qualify as a memory. Voroth studied the data his scouts had gathered. The dominant species called themselves humans. They had discovered radio waves only 200 years ago. They had reached their own moon once and then stopped going. Their most powerful weapons could destroy cities, but could not even scratch the paint. On a Dominion shuttle, primitive, Voroth muttered. Pathetically, embarrassingly primitive, his second-in-command, a younger officer named Krell, stepped forward. Admiral, should we demand their surrender formally? Protocol requires. Protocol is for enemies who deserve respect, Voroth interrupted. These creatures are insects. We will inform them of their new status as property of the Dominion. Nothing more. On Earth, panic spread faster than the news. Governments around the world declared states of emergency. Military forces mobilized, though every general knew their weapons were useless. Religious leaders called for prayer. Scientists tried desperately to find any weakness in the approaching fleet. In Geneva, Switzerland, the United Defense Council met in an underground bunker designed to survive nuclear war. Presidents and prime ministers argued over screens. Generals shouted about pointless battle plans. Diplomats suggested surrender before billions died. But one woman sat in silence at the end of the long table. Director Amara Chen was 63 years old. She had gray hair cut short and practical. Her face showed no emotion as she watched the most powerful leaders in the world fall apart with fear. She checked her tablet occasionally, reading reports that no one else in the room had clearance to see. She was the director of the Prometheus Initiative, and she had been waiting for this day for 12 years. We must surrender, the French president said, his voice shaking. What choice do we have? They have 12,000 ships. We have nothing that can reach them. Surrender means slavery, the American general argued. We have to fight. Maybe we can hurt them enough to hurt them. The British Prime Minister laughed bitterly. Our nuclear missiles cannot leave the atmosphere before they shoot them down. Our aircraft cannot fly in space. We are ants threatening a giant. Director Chen finally spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. Has anyone considered asking them to leave? The room went silent. Every face turned toward her with confusion and anger. Ask them to leave? The Russian defense minister shook his head. This is madness. They are here to conquer us. They will not leave because we ask politely. Perhaps not, Chen said. But I suggest we try. Once, if they refuse, we proceed to alternative measures. The American president leaned forward. What alternative measures? Director Chen, I have read every classified file in existence. There are no secret weapons. There is no hidden fleet. What exactly are you suggesting? Chen smiled. It was a small smile, patient and knowing, like a grandmother watching children play. Mr. President, there are files you have not read. Files that exist above every classification level you know about. I suggest we send one warning to the Valkyrie. A simple warning. If they ignore it, I will handle the situation personally." The room exploded with questions and demands, but Chen simply stood up and walked to the main communication console. She typed a message with her own fingers and pressed send before anyone could stop her. The message traveled at the speed of light toward the alien fleet. It contained exactly 23 words: "Aboard the Eternal Subjugation." Admiral Voroth received the transmission. His translator converted the human language into something he could understand. He read the words once, then twice. Then he began to laugh. The message said, "You have entered restricted space. Leave immediately. You will not receive another warning." "This is not a request." Voroth laughed until his sides hurt. He laughed until tears formed in his fur eyes. Around him, his officers laughed too, though many of them were simply afraid to do anything else. "Restricted space," Voroth repeated between gasps. "The insects have declared their system restricted. To us. To the Valkyrie Dominion." Krell tried to keep a straight face. "Should we respond, Admiral?" Voroth wiped his eyes and straightened his uniform. Yes, I think we should respond. Open a channel to the entire planet. Let every single human hear what I have to say." On Earth, every screen flickered. Every radio crackled. Every phone and computer displayed the face of Admiral Voroth as he delivered his answer. "To humanity's warning." "Fascinating," the alien said, his voice dripping with amusement. "The prey believes it has teeth. I have burned civilizations that mastered faster-than-light travel. Before your species crawled from the oceans. I have ended worlds that built weapons beyond your imagination. Your planet will be slag within the hour. Your people, those we allow to survive, will serve the Dominion for 1,000 generations." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Your warning has been noted and rejected. Prepare for subjugation." The transmission ended. In Geneva, chaos erupted once more. But Director Chen simply checked her watch and nodded to herself. "Well," she said quietly, "we tried." She pulled out her phone and typed a single word to an unknown recipient. The word was, "Confirmed," somewhere on the dark side of the moon, hidden in a crater that no satellite had ever photographed. A light turned on for the first time in 12 years. Machines that had never moved began to hum. Computers that had waited in silence started their calculations. Humanity's true response was about to begin. 12 years earlier, the world was a very different place. Dr. James Okonkwo stood at the edge of a hole that should not have existed. He was a geologist from Nigeria, part of an international team studying ice formations in Antarctica. They had used ground-penetrating radar to map the layers of ancient ice. They expected to find rocks, maybe some frozen fossils, perhaps evidence of climate change from millions of years ago. They did not expect to find metal. 3 miles beneath the ice, the radar showed something impossible. A structure, geometric, artificial, something that had been buried there for longer than humanity had existed. "This has to be a mistake," his colleague Dr. Elena Vasquez said, staring at the readings. "The ice at that depth is 40 million years old. Nothing could survive down there." But the readings did not lie. And when the drilling team finally reached the structure 6 months later, they discovered something that changed everything humanity believed about the universe. It was a ship, not a human ship, something else entirely. The vessel was small, roughly the size of a school bus. Its surface was black and smooth, covered in symbols that seemed to move when you looked at them directly. It had no visible doors, no windows, no engines. But when Dr. Okonkwo touched it, the entire thing lit up with a soft blue glow, and it spoke to him. Not with words, not exactly. The information simply appeared in his mind, like memories that had always been there. He learned things in seconds that would have taken lifetimes to discover. He learned that the universe was very, very old. Civilizations had risen and fallen across billions of years. Some had been kind, most had not. The galaxy was a dangerous place, filled with predators who saw younger species as resources to be harvested. He learned that Earth had been watched, protected, in a way, hidden from the worst of the galaxy's attention while humanity grew and developed. But that protection was temporary. Eventually, something would come. Something always came, and he learned that the ship was a gift, a tool, a weapon, left behind by beings who had seen promise in the strange little creatures on the third planet. From an ordinary star. Dr. Okonkwo emerged from that ice cave a different man, and the world, though it did not know it yet, had changed forever. The governments of Earth were informed within the week. Every major power sent representatives to see the discovery for themselves. At first, there was talk of making it public. A discovery this significant belonged to all humanity, some argued. But then the scientists began to unlock the ship's true potential. The technology inside was beyond anything humans had imagined. Power sources that made nuclear reactors look like candles, materials that could withstand the heat of stars, weapons that could tear holes in the fabric of reality itself, and data, endless data, records of thousands of alien civilizations, their histories, their technologies, their wars, their extinctions. The pattern was clear. Young civilizations that revealed themselves too soon were destroyed. Those who showed weakness were enslaved. The galaxy was not a community waiting to welcome humanity. It was a jungle, and humans were not yet ready to be predators. A secret meeting was held in a location that officially did not exist. The leaders of every major nation sat together for the first time in history. They argued for days. Some wanted to use the technology to gain power over other nations. Others wanted to destroy it, afraid of what it might bring. But a young scientist named Amara Chen stood before them and made a different argument. "We cannot fight each other anymore," she said. "This technology shows us what is out there. Empires that have enslaved billions, fleets that have destroyed entire planets. If they find us before we are ready, we will not survive." She showed them the data from the ship, images of conquered worlds, recordings of civilizations begging for mercy that never came, evidence that the universe was far more hostile than anyone had ever imagined. "We have maybe 20 years, Chen continued. "Maybe less. Something will come eventually. When it does, we must be ready. Not as Americans or Russians or Chinese. As humans, one species, one defense." The vote was unanimous. The Prometheus Initiative was born that day. It was named after the Greek god who stole fire from the heavens and gave it to humanity. The name seemed appropriate. Over the next 12 years, humanity prepared in secret. The technology from the Antarctic ship was reverse engineered and improved. Factories were built in hidden locations, under mountains, in deep ocean trenches, on the dark side of the moon. The public knew nothing. Life continued as normal. People went to work, raised their families, complained about politics and weather and sports. Meanwhile, beneath their feet and above their heads, the greatest military project in human history took shape. Dr. Okonkwo died in his sleep, 8 years after the discovery, peacefully and without regret. He had seen humanity's future, and he believed they would survive it. Amara Chen became the director of the initiative. She aged quickly under the pressure, but her mind stayed sharp. She knew that someday, the enemy would come. Every night, she went to sleep hoping it would not be tomorrow. Every morning, she woke up relieved that humanity had one more day to prepare. Now, 12 years later, she stood in the Geneva bunker and watched the Valkyrie fleet approach Earth. Her face was calm. Her hands did not shake. Around her, world leaders panicked and argued. They did not know about the weapons satellites hidden among space debris. They did not know about the power generators buried in every major mountain range. They did not know about the 2,000 trained operators, currently taking their positions at secret bases around the world. They did not know that the ship in Antarctica had told Dr. Okonkwo something else, something Chen had never shared with anyone. The beings who left the ship had not chosen Earth at random. They had studied humans for thousands of years, watching from distances too great to detect. They had seen something in this strange, violent, creative, stubborn species, something that reminded them of themselves. Humans were survivors. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and their own foolishness. They had clawed their way from caves to space in the blink of a cosmic eye. They were adaptable, unpredictable, dangerous when cornered. The ship had been a test. If humanity used the gift wisely, they might become something great. If they failed, they would join the long list of extinct species that had once looked up at the stars and wondered. Director Chen intended to pass that test. Her phone buzzed. A message from the lunar base. All systems were online. All weapons were charged. All operators were standing by. She typed her response. "Wait for my signal. Outside the bunker, the sky grew dark as the alien fleet moved closer. Humanity's hour of judgment had arrived, and humanity was ready. Admiral Voroth had conquered his first world when he was barely an adult. He remembered standing on the surface of Kellis Prime, watching the fires burn across its 3 continents. The Kellisians had been a proud species. They had built cities that touched the clouds and ships that could cross solar systems. They had believed themselves powerful. They had been wrong. Voroth had risen through the ranks of the Dominion through victory after victory. He had crushed rebellions on prison worlds. He had led the invasion of the Thraxian Empire, a campaign that lasted 50 years and ended with the complete extinction of a species that had once ruled 100 star systems. Now he stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at a planet of primitives, and felt nothing but boredom. Scan their military capabilities. He ordered, "All of them. I want to know exactly what we are facing." Officer Krell worked at his console for several minutes. When he looked up, his expression was almost embarrassed. "Admiral, their most powerful weapons are chemical explosives. Their fastest ships cannot exceed 1% of light speed. They have no planetary shields, no orbital defense platforms, no space-based weapons of any kind." He paused. Their entire military force could not damage a single Dominion patrol ship. Voroth sighed. "Then why are we here with 12,000 warships? This seems excessive. The High Council wanted to send a message, Admiral. This species broadcast their existence into space using radio waves. Other civilizations are watching. The Dominion must demonstrate its power." "Very well." Voroth turned to his tactical officer. "Target their major population centers. We will destroy half of them as a demonstration. The survivors will be easier to control." "Yes, Admiral." Across the Valkyrie fleet, 12,000 ships prepared their weapons. Plasma cannons charged to full power. Missile bays loaded with warheads that could crack a planet's crust. Energy projectors that could turn cities into glass craters in seconds. On Earth, people looked up at the sky and prayed. In the Geneva bunker, the chaos had reached a fever pitch. Generals shouted at each other about useless defense plans. Politicians demanded communication with the aliens. Religious leaders called for calm. Scientists suggested desperate ideas that everyone knew would not work. Director Chen sat quietly through it all. She had stopped checking her tablet. Everything was ready. Now she simply waited. The American president approached her. His face was pale and sweating. "Director Chen, you said you could handle this situation. What did you mean? What are you not telling us?" "With respect, Mr. President, I have told you what you need to know. A warning will be sent. If it is ignored, we will respond." "With what?" The president slammed his hand on the table. "We have nothing. Our nuclear weapons are useless. Our military is helpless. What possible response could we give?" Chen looked at him calmly. "The less you know, the better. Trust me." "Trust you? The world is about to end and you ask me to trust you?" Chen stood. Her voice never rose, but somehow it silenced the entire room. "Mr. President, 12 years ago, I was given a responsibility. Protect humanity. I have spent every day since then preparing for this moment. I have sacrificed my health, my relationships, my entire life for this purpose. And now I am asking you, all of you, to let me do my job." The room was silent. Chen walked to the communication console. "I will send one final warning, just one. If the Valkyrie ignore it, I will activate our response. All I ask is that you do not interfere." Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Chen typed the message herself. Her fingers were steady. Her heart was calm. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times. The message traveled through space at the speed of light. It reached the Valkyrie fleet in less than a second. Admiral Voroth received it on his personal console. He read the words slowly, savoring each one like fine wine. "This is humanity's last act of mercy. Withdraw now or face immediate annihilation. You have 60 seconds. The bridge crew waited for his reaction. Voroth read the message again. Then he began to laugh. It started as a chuckle and grew into a roar. He laughed so hard that he had to grip his command chair to stay upright. His officers joined in, filling the bridge with the sound of alien amusement. "Immediate annihilation," Voroth repeated. "The insects threaten us with annihilation. He activated the fleet-wide communication channel. Every Valkyrie in the Armada heard his words. Fellow warriors, the humans have given us an ultimatum. They demand that we withdraw or face destruction. He paused for effect. I want you all to remember this moment. Remember how the primitives threatened the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. Our children will laugh at this story for generations. The entire fleet laughed. 12,000 ships filled with soldiers who had conquered worlds beyond counting, all united in their mockery of the tiny blue planet below. In Geneva, the countdown began. 60 seconds. Director Chen watched the clock. 50 seconds, 40, 30. Are you certain about this? The British Prime Minister asked. His voice was quiet now, defeated. If this fails, whatever you have planned, billions will die. It will not fail, Chen said simply. 20 seconds, 10, on the eternal subjugation. Admiral Voroth wiped tears of laughter from his eyes. Enough amusement. Begin the attack. Destroy their major cities. Show them what happens to species that threaten the Dominion. Across the fleet, weapons locked onto targets. Los Angeles, Tokyo, Mumbai, Cairo, Moscow, London, Beijing, New York, dozens of cities, home to billions of lives, marked for destruction. Firing in 5 seconds, the tactical officer announced. For seconds, 3, 2. In Geneva, Director Chen closed her eyes and whispered a single word. Prometheus, somewhere, everywhere. Something woke up. Something that had been sleeping since before the Valkyrie Dominion existed. Something that humans had learned to control, but did not fully understand. The universe held its breath, and then everything changed. The signal traveled faster than light. It moved through dimensions that human scientists had only begun to understand. It passed through the fabric of space itself, reaching destinations scattered across the solar system in less than a heartbeat. And everywhere it touched, machines awakened. On the dark side of the moon, inside a crater that no telescope had ever photographed, a facility the size of a city powered up. Lights that had been dark for years flickered to life. Generators that used power sources unknown to public science began to hum. 200 technicians sat at their stations, their faces lit by screens showing data that would have seemed like magic. To anyone outside the Prometheus Initiative, Commander David Park spoke into his headset. Lunar Base 1, confirming activation signal received. All primary systems online. Awaiting final authorization. Beneath the Pacific Ocean, 3 miles down in a trench that officially had never been explored, another facility responded. Its walls were made of materials that could withstand the pressure of an entire ocean. Pressing down on them, inside, banks of computers processed calculations that would have taken normal machines centuries to complete. Deep Station Alpha, confirming activation, a voice reported. Targeting systems operational. We have locks on all enemy vessels, hidden in the mountains of Antarctica, beneath the very ice where the original ship had been discovered. The heart of the Prometheus array came alive. This was where the true weapon waited. The technology reverse-engineered from that ancient gift, the thing that could not be explained by any physics textbook in existence, all across Earth. Smaller installations activated as well. In the Himalayas, in the Andes, in the Rocky Mountains, in the depths of the Mariana Trench, scattered like seeds across the planet. They formed a network that connected to the central array like nerves connecting to a brain. And throughout the solar system, something even stranger began to happen. Millions of objects that had been orbiting the sun for 12 years started to move. They were tiny, barely larger than grains of sand. They had been placed there over years of secret launches, disguised as satellite debris, as failed missions, as accidents. Nobody in the galaxy had noticed them. Now they responded to the signal. They connected to each other, forming an invisible web that stretched from the orbit of Mercury to the edge of the asteroid belt. Each tiny node drew power from the sun itself, harvesting energy in ways that the beings who built the original ship had mastered millions of years ago. Together, they became something new, something terrible. Something that the Valkyrie Dominion could not have imagined in their worst nightmares. In Geneva, Director Chen opened her eyes. Status report. A technician wearing a headset responded. All systems online. Full synchronization achieved. The array is ready. The world leaders in the bunker stared at screens they did not understand, numbers and diagrams that made no sense to them, readings that showed power levels beyond anything in human experience. The American president found his voice. What? What is this? What have you done? Chen did not look at him. Her attention was fixed on a single display showing 12,000 red dots, representing the alien fleet. What we had to do, what we've been preparing for since before you took office, on the eternal subjugation. Admiral Vorath gave the final order. Fire! 12,000 ships opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked toward Earth. Missiles launched in waves that darkened space itself. Energy beams reached toward the planet's surface, ready to turn cities into ash. The attack should have reached Earth in seconds. It did not. The plasma bolts hit something invisible and vanished. The missiles exploded harmlessly in the void, their warheads detonating against a wall of force that had not existed a moment before. The energy beams scattered like light through a prism, spreading into nothing. Admiral Vorath stared at his tactical display. What is happening? Report. Admiral, our weapons. They are not reaching the planet. Something is blocking them. Our sensors cannot identify what it is. Vorath's amusement died. For the first time in centuries, he felt something unfamiliar. A cold sensation in his chest. Something that might have been fear. Impossible. Nothing can stop concentrated fire from 12,000 warships. Nothing. But the data did not lie. Every shot fired at Earth had been stopped. Every missile destroyed. Every beam deflected. The tiny blue planet hung in space, completely untouched. And now something was happening to the fleet. Admiral. Krell's voice was high with panic. Sensor readings are going insane. Power signatures appearing throughout the fleet. Inside our ships. Vorath looked at his personal display. What he saw made his blood freeze. Every ship in the fleet was outlined in light. A strange, blue-white glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. It was coming from nowhere. From everywhere. From inside the hulls and outside them at the same time. What is this? He whispered. On Earth, Director Chen watched the same data. The Prometheus array had locked onto every enemy vessel. Millions of microscopic nodes had positioned themselves around the fleet, invisible, undetectable. They were drawing power from the sun itself, channeling it through dimensions that human science had only begun to explore. The weapon was ready. Chen picked up a communicator. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. This is Director Chen of the United Earth Defense Council. I am speaking to the commander of the alien fleet. On the eternal subjugation. Every screen flickered to show a human woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Admiral Vorath stared at her in disbelief. You gave us 60 seconds to withdraw. Chen continued. You chose not to. You attacked our world. You threatened our people. She paused. That was a mistake. Vorath found his voice. You dare threaten me? I command the mightiest fleet in. You command nothing. Chen interrupted. Look at your readings. Your weapons are useless. Your ships are marked. You are not conquerors here. You are targets. The Admiral looked at his tactical display. The strange glow surrounding his ships was intensifying. Power readings were climbing to levels that his instruments could not measure. This is your last moment of mercy, Chen said. Your escape pods have been mapped. Those who flee will be allowed to live. Those who stay with their ships will die. You have 10 seconds to decide. For a single heartbeat. Silence filled the bridge of the eternal subjugation. Then Admiral Vorath made his final mistake. He raised his weapon toward the screen, toward the image of the human woman who dared to threaten him. Fire everything, he commanded. Destroy that planet. Destroy it now. Director Chen watched him give the order. She felt something that might have been pity. These beings had crossed the galaxy to conquer. They had never considered that they might be the ones who were outmatched. She turned to her technician. Light them up. The technician pressed a single button, and the universe answered. The first second was the longest. Admiral Vorath saw his tactical display flash bright red. He saw his officers turn toward him with terror in their eyes. He saw the walls of his bridge begin to glow with that strange, impossible light. His mind, trained by centuries of warfare, tried to process what was happening. His sensors showed gravitational readings that made no sense. Space itself was bending around his ship, around every ship in his fleet. He opened his mouth to give an order. Any order. But the words never came. The Prometheus array fired. It was not a beam. It was not a missile. It was something that human scientists still did not fully understand. The ancient technology worked by creating pinpoint singularities, tiny black holes that existed for only fractions of a second. Too small to see, too powerful to survive, one appeared in the heart of the eternal subjugation. The second brought destruction beyond imagination. The singularity was smaller than an atom, but its gravity was stronger than a star. Metal, plastic, flesh, everything within reach was pulled toward that impossible point. The flagship of the Valkyrie Dominion did not explode. It collapsed. It folded in on itself like paper crushed in a fist. Admiral Vorath had one moment of perfect clarity. He understood, finally, that the humans had not been bluffing. They had not been desperate. They had been waiting. Then he was gone. The singularity vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving nothing behind but dust. The third second was the death of 1,000 ships. Across the fleet, the same phenomenon repeated. Singularities appeared inside vessels of every size. Destroyers crumpled. Cruisers folded. Carrier ships the size of mountains became nothing in the space between. Heartbeats. The Valkyrie did not even have time to scream. The fourth second brought panic to the survivors. Officers on ships that had not yet been hit stared at their displays in disbelief. Their companions were simply vanishing. One moment, a warship would be there. The next, empty space. Not even debris remained. Not even atoms. All ships retreat. Someone ordered over the fleet communication channel. All ships. The voice cut off mid-sentence. During the 5th and 6th seconds, the flagships died. The command ships of the Valkyrie fleet were the largest vessels, protected by the strongest shields. They had survived battles that destroyed planets. They had withstood weapons that could crack moons. They lasted 1 second longer than the rest. The commanders of those ships had time to realize what was happening. Time to understand that everything they believed about their power had been wrong. Time to feel fear, true fear, for the first time in their ancient lives. Then they joined their admiral in oblivion. The 7th second saw the escape pods launch. Not every Valkyrie soldier was paralyzed by fear. Some of them, the quick thinkers, the survivors, had listened to the human woman's words. They had seen the destruction beginning and made their choice. They abandoned their ships. Escape pods shot out from vessels that were already beginning to collapse. Hundreds of them, then thousands. Tiny bubbles of life fleeing from a fleet that was dying around them. The Prometheus array tracked each pod. It calculated trajectories. It analyzed life signs. And it made a decision that had been programmed into its core by Director Chen herself. The pods were spared. The 8th second was almost silent. Most of the fleet was gone now. Where 12,000 warships had darkened space, only ghosts remained. Clouds of dust that had once been metal. Fading energy signatures that had once been engines. Empty coordinates that had once held soldiers who believed themselves invincible. The survivors in their escape pods watched in horror and awe. They had conquered worlds. They had destroyed civilizations. And now they were witnesses to the death of everything they knew. The 9th second was for the stragglers. A few ships had been on the edges of the fleet. Their commanders had tried to jump to hyperspace, to flee the system of nightmares and never return. The Prometheus array did not allow this. The singularities found them before they could escape. They died running, which was more than most of their victims had been given. The 10th second was silence. The weapons powered down. The microscopic nodes scattered throughout the solar system went dormant once more. The facilities on the moon and beneath the oceans and hidden in mountains began their shutdown procedures. Where an armada had gathered, only dust and escape pods remained. Director Chen watched the tactical display. 12,000 red dots had marked the enemy fleet. Now there were 847, all showing as non-combat units. Survivors who had chosen life over pride. She let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. In the bunker, no one spoke. World leaders who had been screaming in panic minutes ago stood frozen in shock. They had witnessed something that they could not explain. Something that changed everything they believed about humanity's place in the universe. The American president was the first to find words. How? How is this possible? Chen turned to face him. She suddenly looked very old and very tired. 12 years of preparation, the hardest secret ever kept, and a gift from beings who died before our son was born. Those pods. The British Prime Minister said. The survivors. What happens to them? They go home. Chen walked to the communication console. They tell their empire what happened here. They tell every civilization in the galaxy. She opened a channel to the escape pods. Her voice was broadcast to every surviving Valkyrie, every monitoring station in the galaxy, every receiver that could pick up the signal. This is Director Chen of Earth. Your fleet is destroyed. Your admiral is dead. You are being allowed to leave because humanity believes in mercy. But remember this moment. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Earth is not a world to be conquered. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are not children stumbling through the dark in their escape pods. The Valkyrie survivors listened. They would remember these words for the rest of their lives. They would repeat them to their children and their children's children. We were being polite. Chen continued. We gave you warnings. We asked you to leave. You refused. And now you have seen what happens when humanity stops being polite. She looked at the tactical display one last time. The 847 pods were already accelerating away from Earth, fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. Go home. Tell your empire. Tell everyone. Earth gave one final warning. You should have listened. She ended the transmission. In the Geneva bunker, the world leaders slowly began to breathe again. Outside, across the planet, 7 billion humans had no idea how close they had come to extinction. They would learn, eventually. The secret could not be kept forever. But for now, the sky was clear. The stars were bright. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, 847 survivors carried a message that would echo across the galaxy. Earth was no longer alone. But Earth was no longer afraid. Humanity had announced itself to the universe, and the universe had listened.